My parents took my sister on vacation instead of me. Later on, she ruined the family vacation and got arrested. Now my parents finally realize her true colors. I have a younger sister, Lisa, who is 18. I believe she is the true incarnation of evil on earth. I have tried my best to convince my parents over the years to see the truth, but they never believed me. At least until now. For context, my parents and I have always had a somewhat strained relationship. This is mainly because of Lisa. My parents absolutely adore her. I adore her because my mother had a miscarriage and she lost the baby, which deeply affected her. Lisa was born a few years later and was regarded as their miracle child, a beacon of hope and joy that healed the pain of their previous loss. My parents showered her with affection and attention, turning her into the center of our family universe. Now, let me be clear. I loved my younger sister when we were children. It's just that I slowly started realizing that Lisa had an incredible talent for manipulation that none of us saw coming. Some of my family members were able to see that she knew how to twist the story to her advantage and that she was skilled at playing the victim. On my birthday, I received an amazing antique pocket watch from our grandparents. I was thrilled with it because my grandmother told me that it was a family heirloom. However, Lisa was clearly jealous and kept asking if I could share it with her. I said no because it was a gift for me on my birthday. She tried to persuade our parents, but they couldn't do much because it was from our grandparents. My parents tried to help, but they couldn't do much that night. Lisa, who knew I was scared of spiders, put a house spider in my pillowcase. I woke up and felt it crawling over me. I started screaming. My parents came to my room. Lisa seemed surprised and caring, but later she told me with a creepy grin when we were alone that she put the spider there to teach me a lesson. I was shocked by how casually she confessed, without any remorse. Another time, I remember when I had a crush on my classmate Mark. I finally had the courage to invite him over to watch a movie with me. I was feeling all giddy and excited and had carefully picked out a dress to impress him. But as soon as Mark arrived at our house, Lisa spilled a glass of juice all over my dress and started laughing at me. I was even more mortified and had to change all while trying to hide my embarrassment. As if that wasn't enough, Lisa started telling Mark embarrassing stories from my childhood, making me feel utterly humiliated. She didn't leave us alone the entire time we watched the movie. When Mark was about to leave, Lisa smirked and told him that he could do much better than me. Mark, who had been uncomfortable the entire time, left in a hurry. I just couldn't believe how cruel and cunning over the years. I told my parents about my sister's antics several times, but they always chalked it up to her being young and naive. They just couldn't see her for who she really was. Whenever I complained, they just dismissed me and thought of me as the troublemaker in the family, so I eventually stopped speaking up about her. Lisa continued being their favorite child, while I always took the straightforward approach and often felt like the outsider in my own family. I focused on my studies and I got into a good college, which gave me the chance to move out and have a better life. However, every time I came home during breaks, Lisa made it clear that she didn't want me back. She ignored me at family meals and avoided sitting next to me or interrupting me when I was talking to our parents. Her constant need to undermine my presence showed that she didn't want me there. She made it clear that she didn't want me around and tried to make my visits as uncomfortable as possible. She even messed with my stuff, pretending that she needed to borrow things but would often damage them or lose them instead. My parents didn't do anything when I tried to complain and just told us to get along with each other. I began avoiding coming home during breaks and spending my time with my college friends and their families instead. To be honest, my parents didn't mind. As much as I was able to, I chalked it up to me being independent and wanting to enjoy some time away from home. When Lisa graduated from high school, she didn't have the grades for college, so she settled for community college instead. This meant that she never had to move out of our parents' place. These days, I am working at a multinational corporation in San Francisco, and I genuinely enjoy my job. I sometimes stay in touch with my parents, but I rarely visit back home. I don't maintain any contact with Lisa. I haven't heard from her in a while. My father recently had a near-fatal heart attack. Fortunately, he survived by some miracle and was rushed to a hospital when my mother called to tell me about it. I immediately booked my tickets and flew back home to be there for them. The doctors prescribed numerous medications for my father and strongly advised him to start working out. Since being discharged, my father has expressed spending more time with us as a family and told me how lucky he was to be saved from the brink of death. I got the sense that my dad was still pretty shaken up, so I decided to stick around for a few days. My job allows me to work remotely, so it was no problem. However, I noticed that Lisa was pretty upset that I was back. I tried to avoid her as much as possible because we were both a bit older now, and I didn't want to argue. One morning during breakfast, my father suggested that we all go on a family vacation. It had been a while since we'd all gone on a trip together. It had been a long time since we'd all gone somewhere together. I had my reservations at first, but I knew how important it was to my dad, so I agreed. Lisa wasn't thrilled about it, but she had no choice but to go along with the plan my dad made. He arranged our flights and accommodations. I'd planned my leave from work in advance and told my colleagues not to contact me during this time because I wanted to enjoy quality time with our parents. However, when we got to the airport, I found out that my flight had been canceled. I looked at my father, who kept insisting that he had booked and paid for my ticket. When we checked further, it turned out that the one ticket with my name on it had been canceled. I was trying to understand what was going on when I looked over at Lisa. She had a sly smile on her face. I'd seen that same expression on her face plenty of times before, when she'd pulled off one of her manipulative tricks. I suddenly realized that she was the one who'd canceled my ticket, probably from my father's computer. I started yelling at her as she just kept smiling at me. I told my parents that it was Lisa's doing, because she'd never wanted me to go on this family vacation in the first place. Instead of believing me, my mother immediately dismissed me. My claim was that my sister would never do something like that. She went on to tell me that I should stop being jealous of my younger sister and that it was just a freak accident that my ticket had been canceled. My father also tried to justify that this might have been an airline mistake and that I shouldn't blame it on my sister. I was utterly frustrated that my parents couldn't fathom that their beloved miracle child would be behind such a deception. At that point, there was nothing I could do. My ticket had already been canceled, and there were no other flights for that day. While it was possible for me to catch a flight the next day, I didn't relish the idea of returning home, booking a new flight, and traveling alone. After all, this was supposed to be a family trip. I was also dreading Shar being in a room with Lisa during this trip. I had hoped that she had matured over the years, but if she was behind the cancellation of my flight ticket, I couldn't help but wonder what other tricks she might have up her sleeve to make my trip miserable. My father was initially hesitant, suggesting they could all go back home and plan a new trip later. But then he started talking about how it had been ages since he went on a vacation. My mother agreed, telling me that I always travel a lot for work, so I wasn't going to miss out on much on this trip if I didn't go. Their comments really got to me. It seemed like they wanted me to insist they continue on this vacation without me. I told them that they were welcome to continue with their vacation if they wanted, and they readily agreed. I didn't want to waste the money they had spent on the tickets and rooms, though. I was sad that they didn't care whether I joined them or not. It became clear that they didn't mind going on this family vacation as a family of 3. So there I was, standing alone at the airport. I went back to my place in San Francisco when my folks and Lisa left for their vacation. I didn't want to spend another day alone in the house, so I tried to put the whole thing behind me and focus on enjoying the rest of my leave. I caught up with old friends and spent my days reading. I spent the trip on my own, but my folks would sometimes video chat with me. I could see how much they were enjoying the trip without me. It was like my absence didn't really affect their trip in any way. I wasn't too heartbroken about missing the vacation, but I couldn't help feeling excluded. It was another reminder of the favoritism that had always existed in our family. I hoped that someday they would see through Lisa's true nature. A few days into their vacation, I woke up to several missed calls from my mom called to say that my dad's health might have taken a sudden turn for the worse. I called her back right away. Thankfully, she picked up, but she sounded really distressed. I asked her if everything was okay. She told me that something really troubling had happened. It seems that my parents had noticed that my dad's essential heart medications were disappearing day by day. It was a pretty alarming situation, given that my dad couldn't afford to miss his medication, given his fragile health. They were in a foreign country and didn't know if the same medicine would be available outside the US. They were genuinely concerned about the missing pills and searched their room, but couldn't find them. My mother had gone to Lisa's hotel room, which was next to theirs, to borrow some sunscreen while Lisa was out. To her shock and dismay, she discovered all the missing medicines tucked away inside Lisa's bedside table. She immediately called for my father, who rushed in and found all his medication that had gone missing. Over the last few days, I think they finally realized that their beloved daughter, the so-called miracle child, had been intentionally jeopardizing my father's health and putting him at great risk. My mother's voice quivered as she asked if they should confront Lisa about this. I told her not to speak to Lisa about this until they were back home. They needed to gather their thoughts, emotions, and evidence to face Lisa with the undeniable truth. I knew that speaking to Lisa now I figured she'd come up with some excuse to avoid responsibility. But something must have happened between then and now that made KN and my parents confront her. I got a call from my dad late at night. He was really shaken up. He said Lisa was in jail. I was surprised. He told me she had a full-blown tantrum when they asked her about the medications. She threw things and shouted insults. She was really angry at my dad. She accused him of booking a ticket for me when he shouldn't have let me on their family vacation. She told them that if they kept seeing me, she'd teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Lisa kept lashing out, and things got worse until someone from the hotel called the police. When the officers arrived, she refused to calm down and insulted them, which led to her being taken into custody. She was released after 24 hours. Nothing my parents could do at the moment. Desperate to return home after Lisa's release, my parents had tried to reschedule their flight. However, their plans were foiled when they discovered that their passports and wallets were missing. It turns out that Lisa had either discarded their passports or hidden them away. For now, they were stranded in a foreign country with no passports or wallets. I guess this was the first time that my parents started to see my sister for who she really was. My mother, who had always defended Lisa, was now begging me to help. They didn't have any money or their documentation to fly out of there. She was shocked at the realization of her daughter's true nature. I told them not to worry and that I would send them money using Western Union. They had to find their passports first so they could return home. I was certain that Lisa hadn't discarded them. They were finally realizing that I had been the honest one all along about her antics and were grateful that I was helping them out despite them not taking me on this vacation. They apologized for their behavior, while part of me wishes I could forgive my parents. It's hard to shake the feeling that I've been deprived of their love for all these years due to their favoritism towards my sister. So, I'm not going to forgive my parents for going on this vacation without me, and now that they're getting a taste of it, they'll be back begging for my forgiveness. I'll update you every day. My parents call me with updates, and I'm getting increasingly anxious about their situation. You see, after Lisa was released from jail the next day, my parents threatened her. They said they'd call the authorities on her again if she didn't give them back their passport. Faced with no other choice, Lisa eventually revealed where she had hidden their passports. When they got back home, my parents confronted Lisa. They told her she needed to gather her belongings and leave. It was becoming increasingly clear that they had reached their breaking point. Finally, they realized the truth about their daughter's manipulative and harmful actions. She might jeopardize his health again by stealing his medication. This started another screaming match between Lisa and my parents. During this confrontation, Lisa began to hurl accusations at my parents. She expressed her anger and resentment. She told my parents that she didn't want to share them with anyone else. She also claimed that she had been pushed to the brink when they invited me. On the trip, she kept saying that my parents should disown me. She said that she was enough for both of them. My parents probably realized then how much she resented my place in the family. While they tried to calm her down, she kept yelling at them. In a fit of anger, she said that she would tell everybody that they had neglected her when she was a child and mistreated her. During her formative years, she was basically going to accuse them of parental negligence. Lisa then threatened to go to the police and make false statements against our parents if they continued to ask her to move out. This genuinely scared my parents, as these fabricated allegations would put them in a difficult position. particularly since they are well-respected doctors in our community. The mere thought of their reputation being ruined by false accusations has since left them feeling trapped and anxious. In the past few days, Lisa has continued to she's making our parents' lives more and more difficult. These days, she gets really mad and starts breaking dishes in anger. She also keeps stealing their car keys and hiding them, which makes it hard for them to go to work every day. Just tonight, my mother called me in tears after another bad incident during dinner. Lisa had a big tantrum and yelled at them because she wanted my mother to cook for her when she refused because she was tired from at work. Lisa went on a rampage and started breaking furniture around the house. Then she went to her room and turned up the music really loud, which prevented our parents from getting a good night's sleep. The situation keeps getting worse, and it's taking a toll on my parents emotionally and mentally. I am increasingly concerned about what might happen next. I had hoped my parents would see Lisa's true nature, but now I'm worried that she could pose a real threat to them. I can't even return home. I'm trying to persuade my parents to consult with a lawyer so we can find a permanent solution to this ongoing crisis. The legal route seems like the best way to protect my parents and restore peace to our family. Update: Lisa has been arrested. As many of you predicted, this was bound to happen. One night, she came at our parents with a knife during a big fight. My parents were terrified, so they called the police. The officer took her into custody and charged her with assault. My parents decided it was time to pursue a more permanent solution. They consulted with an attorney who advised them on the legal process for evicting her from their home. They filed a formal eviction notice, which stated that she had to leave. They knew it wasn't easy, but it was necessary to make things safer. My parents didn't want to continue. They didn't want to press charges against her because they just wanted her to move out. They bailed her out of jail and gave her a formal notice telling her she had to move out. It had all the legal stuff explaining why she had to go and when she needed to leave. My parents made sure they did everything by the book so Lisa couldn't challenge it. Next, they went to court with their lawyer to start the eviction process, which meant filing a lawsuit against Lisa. This was all pretty hard on my parents since it was their own daughter they were taking to court. They felt really sad, guilty, and like they had no other choice. The court finally gave an official order that said Lisa had to leave the house. If she didn't go on her own, they would have the legal right to make her leave the property. Lisa is going to be out by next week. My parents can finally breathe a sigh of relief. They know they've taken a step towards getting their home and peace back. It's been a tough road, but they're hopeful that things will improve once Lisa moves out. I've stayed in touch with them throughout this ordeal and plan on bringing them over to San Francisco for a few weeks. It's a way to give them a break and let them relax after all they've been through. I'm sure they could use a change of scenery and some time away from the stress Lisa has caused. Plus, it'll be a chance for us to spend some quality time together. I want to support them as much as I can. I've received hundreds of comments on my post, so I've been busy going through them. Many of you have suggested that we should consider getting Lisa checked out to see if there's a mental health issue at play here. The thing is that since she's an adult, we can't force her to go for a checkup against her will due to her sudden violent outbursts. We don't want to push her and make this situation more complicated. As I said in my last update, my parents flew down to San Francisco to spend a few days with me. They're here to take some time away after what they went through the last few months. Yesterday evening, as we gathered around the dining table in my cozy apartment, my parents began to open up to me. They admitted that they had been blind to Lisa's true nature over all the years and begged for my forgiveness. My father expressed his remorse for despite my earlier warnings. He admitted that they never expected Lisa to turn out this way and were unable to see the truth beneath her charming facade. My mother echoed my father's sentiments and acknowledged the gravity of their mistake. She also shared the pain of realizing how they had failed me by favoring Lisa. I let them know that I appreciated them taking the first step in seeking my forgiveness. I shared several memories with them. I told them about the painful memories of the years of torment I endured due to Lisa's actions. They listened, utterly shocked and dismayed at the extent of what I had endured on my own. They acknowledged the pain I had gone through and expressed regret over the isolation I felt in my own family. They told me how their favoritism towards Lisa had clouded their judgment because they never had expected to get pregnant with her and always considered her to be their miracle baby. They begged for my forgiveness. It was a bittersweet moment for me as I had always wanted their acknowledgement. While it may not have been the ideal way to mend our relationship, it was a turning point that brought some much-needed honesty and clarity to our family dynamic. We were, for the first time in years, truly acknowledging the issues that had plagued our family. I told them that it would take me some time to trust them again, and we all agreed to work through this together. For now, I plan to. I'm making the most of the time I have with my family while they're here with me for the next few days. Update 4. As the days passed, my parents and I spent more time together exploring the vibrant streets of San Francisco, enjoying leisurely meals, and simply relishing each other's company. It has been quite a journey to reconnect with each other by rebuilding the bonds that had been frayed by years of favoritism and denial. I came to understand that their decision to seek solace with me was not just about physical distance from Lisa, but also about rebuilding the family they had almost lost. It wasn't just about physical distance from Lisa, but a desire to rebuild the family they had almost lost. We both needed a fresh start. My parents and I have since discussed what to do with Lisa. She is currently staying at one of her friends' homes. We can't simply abandon her, despite the turmoil she has caused in our lives. My mom and dad feel a profound sense of responsibility towards their daughter. Even if her actions have been unforgivable, we have come to terms with the fact that her behavior might not just be mischief, but might be indicative of deeper issues. We're looking into the possibility of a mental health evaluation to better understand her condition. However, since Lisa is an adult, we can't force her into such an assessment. We're planning to find a way to encourage her to seek help voluntarily. My parents plan on reaching out to Lisa once they're back home to see if she's open to a discussion. I don't want to contact her because she still holds a strong grudge. I know it's not easy, but I'm trying to avoid making things worse for her mentally. Given what's happened in the past, I've suggested to my parents that they meet her in a public place so she has to control her emotions. Our main goal is for Lisa to understand our perspective and, most importantly, to recognize how much we love and care about her. It's not about assigning blame. It's about us, as a family, working together to address the issues that have strained our relationships.